Hi, and in this video we're going to have a look at how to lay a new patio. This customer also wanted some turf laying and a planter making too. The first stage was to remove the old border planters. These were brick, they were crumbly, falling apart, so just a chisel, a hammer, knocked these down quite easily, dug out any foundations and then cleared the area. And we were going to use for this scaffolding boards, which you'll see a little bit later on. We then started to prepare the lawn by cutting off strips of turf and removing the old turf. Again, we just did it manually by hand using a spade and did it in even lengths. A lot of the bricks and the rubble that we removed from the old borders we've saved, because I was going to use this for hardcore in a little while. As you'll see, the level of the patio from the house to the lawn wasn't equal, and the height dipped away as it went away from the house, and it also leaned into the house nearer to the front edge. So we're now putting the planters together. Again, making them out of scaffolding boards, as I said, just measured them, cut to size, and then use decking screws to assemble the corners and reinforce them with some packing pieces. This was then set in on a bed of gravel for good drainage, backfilled it with soil, and then just filled in with a little bit of cement around the bottom edge. It was then painted with some outdoor paint suitable for wood. And as you can see, what you can do, reusing some existing material and keeping things sustainable. Okay, we're continuing to remove the rest of the lawn here, as the turf had arrived at this point, and you have to lay your turf pretty quickly. You can't leave it outside, otherwise it dies pretty fast. You need to pretty much get it down as soon as it gets delivered. So we were using some of the old scaffold boards to make sure we weren't trampling on the new grass or the prepared surfaces. And because the lawn was dipping down to the left hand side, it was planing away. We built it up with some sharp sand. So this was put on first. Got my son helping there, and raking that out level, building it up higher on the near the fence edge. So once all the sand was down, we can then start to lay some of the new turf, as you can see on the top right hand side there. And then just bedding it and knitting it into the edges and the existing lawn. Small section of lawn that was left in the middle, still pretty decent quality. There wasn't many weeds in that section, so that little bit remained. But we replaced probably 2/3 of the lawn leading up to the new patio edge. So we're now starting to have a look at removing some of the old concrete from the house side, filling in some of the uneven layers, so just using concrete for that, and then skimming it over with a trowel. So making sure that everything was fairly flat and level before we started thinking about laying any slabs. As you can see here, this is up against the house wall, where there's two mud beds. Again, no hardcore in here, so we use the old bricks from the borders, the bedding borders for the plants, and again this made great hardcore, so ram that down with a rammer, and then about 2 or 3 inches of concrete over the top, leveled up to the bricks, As we can see here, it's an existing brick patio. Again, there's no need to lift that up because that made a really nice stable bed for the new patio slabs to go on top. So we're just leveling up the other layers, bringing it up to the house wall there, and just using the side of the float there to just put some ridges in, just to give it a bit of texture, so that when we put the new slabs on, they will key to that nicely. On this right hand side of the steps going up to the conservatory, it was pretty low here. It was sort of falling away towards the house, so it was a lot lower, so that needed building up. That's the left side. That wasn't too bad, but the right side needed a complete bringing forward. It was completely out. So that on the right hand side at the moment is stage 1, where we've just skimmed it over the hardcore just to get that all keyed in nice. And doing it the old fashioned way would have been really great if I had a big cement mixer, but we're doing this steadily over a period of 3 weeks, mixing everything by hand in the wheelbarrow. So mixing it about 2 parts sand to 1 part cement. As you can see here now, we are starting to build it back, and at the house end it was probably nearing 4 inches to 100 millimeters thick at one point, and as we come away from the house it sort of thins out to the existing patio, which is level and flat. So ideally what we're trying to get is a very slight inclined sort of plane angle away from the house, so it's tapering away, so it's slightly higher at the house end, and then as it goes towards the lawn it gets a little bit lower. Again, this helps with drainage and runoff. What you don't want is rainwater running back towards your house. So you're probably looking about, if it's just 10 to 15 mil difference between the house and the lawn, and this was probably about, I think it was approximately 5 to 6 meters away from the house wall, the total depth. A little friend here, as you can see, decided to get his feet in it. A cat there. Again, using the scaffold boards to try and step over any wet areas or any concrete that hadn't gone off. Starting to lay the slabs now. So we started in the right side of the conservatory steps, and we set the first one in the far corner. So what we did here, and just about to see it there in that photo, we had a string, a couple of sets of strings from the corner running to the lawn, so vertical strings, and then we also had a horizontal string as well to get the left and right levels correct as well. So starting off with the back row, using a 10mm, about 10mm or centimetre piece of spacing wood. I had about 8 of these just to tap at either side as I laid each slab. Again, this keeps them nice and square against each other while the cement's going off. And using the blobbing technique, about 5 blobs of decent cement. Again, hardly any at the back edge because it was fairly level and flat, and as we come forward it was getting slightly higher as it planed away. And we were deciding to stagger these as well. The customer wanted them staggered, so we're cutting half pieces, so those were left for at the end, so we could use the disc cutter on those afterwards. So getting all the full slabs down first. And doing 3 or 4 hours at a time, letting them go off and then coming back to it sometimes the next day. So this was a one-man job. This is my old self. We're now putting the row right the way across there, which goes to the full width of the garden. from left to right. Coming in front of the patio steps, those weren't quite full slabs, so we've got a few spaces there, which we'll cut afterwards. You can see the spacing pegs in there, make sure that they're all set, and once they're set and gone off, then they can be removed. I tended to do 3 or 4 slabs, and then by the time I'd done the 4th one, the first one was pretty much set enough to remove the spacers. Again, using this method, you have to be very careful that you don't knot them, because it's easy to knot them loose once you have actually set them or the cement's gone off. And you have to try not to walk on them as well, because even though the cement has probably set, if you start walking on them, you can knock them loose before the actual joints have been done. You can see on the leading edge there where it meets the grass, we've put a tapered ridge of concrete or cement along that front edge and sleeked it with a trowel. Again, that gives the leading edge stability so that the slab edges don't break away or fall away into the lawn. And then the lawn was tucked up against that at the end. So we're now nearly pretty much done. Just working on the left side now, so working our way back towards the far corner, on the left of the steps. And then it's waiting for the cut pieces to go in. Okay, using a disc cutter to cut the slabs there. Again, it's good practice to probably have a hose pipe or some water running across your slabs while you're cutting, just so you don't wear your blade out. Can tend to spray a little bit, so always put a board up or do it away from a house wall, so where you're not going to make a mess. Keep that all in one place, and then trim and cut each tile or slab. Making sure that you've got enough gap between each of the joints. Again, I was leaving about 10mm all the way around. It's probably best to measure and cut do all your cutting first, get all your pieces that you need before you go back cementing them. And once you've got them all cut, you can mix some cement up and then get them all placed into position, as you can see here. We're starting to fill in some of the edges now with cement. Again, we left a little bit at the back edge leading up to the house for drainage, and we put some golden shingle in there, some beach shingle, and that sets it off and makes it nice and attractive. So again, I've slaked in a drainage channel with some cement at the bottom of there, leaving that a couple of inches deep just for that shingle to go on. And then when you do the joints, I mixed up a very dry mix, a little bit of water in it just to make it bind slightly, but not wet. What you don't want is cement getting all over the edges of your slabs and having to scrub them afterwards, so keep it fairly dry. And I was using a sleeking tool just to scrape that into the joints, and then just pressing it down as firmly as I could. There was quite a few gaps underneath the slab, so took up a lot of cement and mortar mix to fill all of those in, but it's best to do it rather than just brush it in and leave it, because what will happen once the rain gets on it, it'll sink and you'll end up with loads of holes. So painstakingly, every joint had to be filled, pressed, sleeked if you want a professional proper job. Another technique is to get a silicone gun and fill it with this modern sort of filler or mortar mix. Can be done, but again, it still needs sleeking if you want it looking good. Okay, we're just finishing off the back edge now, leading up to the steps from the side of the house. Last little bit of sleeking. And there's the end result. Again, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to leave me any messages, please feel free to do so. Take care. See you soon.